Going. It's been a very interesting new year so far, and it's only going to get a lot better. And there's a lot more information and a lot of very, very good and things that are going to be able to help you actually be able to activate those emotions, put those into your acting. There's a lot of work that I'm doing and will continue to do, and it's going to be really good. So let's do a small intro here, and then we will start on a couple things and explain the day. I really am into acting, and I know you are too. And the most important thing in acting is emotion. You've got to be willing and capable, and you got to know some of these tricks. These tricks of being able to activate your emotion. You activate your emotion in the being side of the work, and then you catapult yourself and dive into the doing side of the work, the interaction. And this element called emotional preparation is key. Hi, my acting training is incredibly extensive. These are some of my notes. This is not all of them. By far, it's not all. And I really like acting. I really like the hardest component of acting is the emotion. And so that's why I run and operate emotional preparation. And there's information on that website that you can join me on my live feed, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Tuesdays and Fridays. I hope to see you there. If you find the information on my website, you can actually join the live feed. I can send you a link and you can actually come on and talk to me face to face. And you can actually, we'll do emotional preparations together. So we can actually work to be able to access your emotions and help you be able to put emotions into your acting work. Okay, so today is an interesting day. I am still getting over just a touch of the weather that, just a slight bit. So we're going to see how long we go or not, but we have showed up to work. We are going to continue to work, and we are working on our acting. And there'll be more and more content, more videos, and I'm going to do definitely quite a lot of work. And I'm talking about stuff that's coming out this month as well. If you would ask me very, very good acting questions, and don't be worried if the question's not good enough. Just go ahead and ask the question, because, I've been around acting, all the top people, a lot of the top people. I have watched training in different acting techniques, all the different acting techniques, exercises. Typically it was the Meisner exercises, of course, but still they were practicing these different various techniques. Sometimes, of course, there's all sorts of different techniques. It's not just one thing. So, a question that you ask might spur a fantastic response, or it might just help me remember something in my training that I remember from all those years of the hard work that I've done and continue to work on. And of course, that's the point of this, is to be able to isolate things that activate you so you can actually build your own acting technique. I don't want you to have my acting technique unless that works for you. I want you to have your own acting technique. You want to be able to identify exactly what it is that actually works to be able to trigger off things that are inside of you, and then that is able to then be a living thing inside of you, and then you dive into the imaginary circumstance. And then the imaginary circumstance has more life because of what you intentionally have done using emotional preparation. So, first of all, I wanted to say very nicely, I have been under the weather. I'm still getting caught up on emails and communications. And it is very, very helpful to see some very good comments, and it's very encouraging to see comments of how helpful the information actually has been. Now, this information sometimes it's difficult sometimes to get parts of the information because, acting is a very personal thing. And sometimes it's very difficult to get the actual nuts and bolts of the actual acting technique processes into a full understanding for yourself. And that's exactly the reason why I'm doing this, because for one, I want to have a roadmap for myself so that maybe one day I find some parts or work on some stuff or come up with some things that I do and end up working more on different things. And, you might not even recognize me, but I'll be out there working. And this is the key. The absolute key is that you're capable of accessing your emotion and your talent. So I'm still checking my emails. I'm still checking my messages, and I really do appreciate the support. It's very, very kind. I really appreciate it. Now, the first thing having to do with this is, let me make a change of screen here. Hold on. Still learning to get fluid with everything. Want to make sure it has an email address. Yeah, there it is. So the first thing that's very key today is we have to remind ourselves consistency is not something that just happens. Consistency requires constant change. Constant. See, there is a lot of empowered people that are capable of doing many different things in acting and outside of acting. And because they think that they can't make a change because, well, everything's consistent. No, the thing is consistency, they miss being able to make the changes to keep themselves consistent. So, I mean, for instance, the inflation rate's at 6.8%. Last time that the inflation rate was at 6.8%, interest rates were at 18 to 20%. So that's a very big difference than where they are now. Well, in order to stay consistent, you would have to make those adjustments to be able to have equality, to be able to be equal, to be able to have that consistency. And that's true with economics as it is acting. It's no difference. I mean, there's a big difference between the two, but they can be applicable as to the actual applying of that principle. So it's sad. When I see wasted talent, that's one of the biggest things that I don't like. I can't stand wasted talent. And I have definitely said that in my past. I think it's one of the saddest things is wasted talent. And this is the reason why I am determined. And when I say I'm determined, I am determined with full follow through, regardless of how many people are watching me live or not watching me live, or end up, maybe it's a year from now, things don't catch on. I don't care. I'm going to go full throttle into explaining the actual techniques that I know for an absolute fact from my own eyes. I have seen and absolutely know from my own training that actually work to activate emotion in acting. So what's key to me is it's vital. It is absolute vital for the interaction to continue. And even with limited interaction, it's going to continue because I am adamant that these techniques in acting should not remain a secret. It is the worst thing in the world that people have wasted talent. They have talent, they have empowerment, but they don't realize that they can make changes to be able to make their work consistent. Consistency takes a lot of work, and consistency takes a lot of changes. It's just a fact. And it's the same thing in acting. So I'm still working to do some of the formatting for the videos. If you have suggestions on how to do the formatting for the videos, let me know. Don't be a stranger and be very clear with what you feel. And I'd be very happy to see if, I'm very open, very, very, very open. And it's important to be open. And I train myself. I mean, I need to do that actually. And I need to make a note, even while this is running. I train myself to be open. Now, this is actually some stuff that I need to do some work on because there's actually exercises that you can do that can make sure that you're not trying to follow the ideal or trying to perform or perforate or trying to put on something, but you literally are capable of opening yourself up so that you're capable of having that ability to be vulnerable and you're able to be open. And there's exercises and stuff. That's another topic that I don't know when, but I will definitely need to look at because it's important. Being open is one of the most important things that you can do. And I'll tell you, it takes a huge, huge, huge amount of discipline to be able to absolutely be open, especially when you're dealing with emotion. Because emotion, sometimes you really want a tendency to pull back or to hide away from. You want to be able to get back from. But the reality of emotion is you want to be open to be able to have the experience of the emotional life. So you open yourself up to having an emotional experience. You don't know exactly what that experience is fully going to be. And you're working to have that emotion work, and then that experience unfolds in this creative and intense, incredible way. And there is absolutely ways to do that using acting technique. Acting techniques are not something that hold you back or limit you. Acting techniques are what harnesses your actual talent, your hardest to be able to have the channeled neurosi that you activate when you release that emotion go into something that's artistic. So there's an artistic value, so that there's a reflection that's in the art, in your expression, that then gets reflected with the audience. It's incredible how much this actually works, and it does. And it's a techniques that are capable of being able to actually get that communication of that channeled neurosi. You activate your neurosi, it's alive in you, then that emotion comes out, wants to start to express itself. You go into an imaginary circumstance, all of a sudden, something fires off. There's something going on. There's an exchange happening. There's an interaction going on. This is acting, folks. There's no way around it. It's raw, it's real life. And the more you're able to do this and work with these things called emotions, the better you're going to be. The better off you're going to be. You're going to be able to have, real life experiences actually in acting, which is fantastic. Just fantastic. All right, so let's look at the first thing here, and then we'll come back and keep working through. And I'm not offended. Things are going to take some time to kick off. I'm still doing some stuff in the background as well. This industry is fantastic. It's very, very, very interesting. And what you're asked to do as an actor can initially feel like it's impossible. I mean, literally, the process of going into auditions, seeing somebody that you've never seen before in your life, and then being asked to instantly believe that they're involved in whatever is involved in the script. This is what we're asked to do in acting. Every single day that we get an audition, this is what we're asked to do. We're asked to be able to actually use our imaginations to actively believe that a person's involved in something that they've never been part of or that they may not have ever done. And we're asked to be able to have that be completely believable. So there's the elements that I teach very well. And please be very open with your opinions with me. I'm very open to exploring any opinions. But the reality of this, I teach very well how to do the emotion. Because the emotion is the bean side of the work. So you got the bean side of the work. But the topic of the day has to do with imagination. With imagination acting exercise. So, a lot of people have asked me over the years and still do. How do I rehearse alone, Simon? Simon, how does this work when you don't have a partner to work with? How can you exercise your imagination? Another question people have asked is, how do you rehearse a scene? How do you work in a way that's activating your imagination and acting? You're literally asked to completely believe that a stranger that may have nothing to do, with what the script is suggesting that they've had to do with their life, maybe the casting's bad. Or maybe it needs your creative energy to be able to make it actually work. So, it comes down to your imagination. The imagination acting exercise is the ability to stretch your imagination. Now I know. How do you do that? If you can sit down at a coffee shop and start to believe that people are maybe things that your script suggests, or that they have character traits that you have no idea if they have or not, but you're capable of working with your own imagination to believe that it's possible. Well, now you're working with your imagination. So what am I suggesting? Look, there's all types of ways to work with your imagination. And of course you have to be careful. And this is the real thing to be careful of, is that you're able to come out of it just like you're able to go into it. So you work within your imagination. You're literally asked to completely believe strangers are doing, like, I don't know, heinous things, or they're involved in high crimes, or they're part of like white collar networks, or whatever the script is. Well, then I would suggest that you go to coffee shops. Sit in the coffee shops and imagine that you're in a situation around the people and the coffee shops that well, yeah, that guy or this girl or this woman, this is the thing, and this person could be that grandmother over there. I could see them being parts of this script. I can imagine it. Now you know that you're working with your imagination because this is acting. Now this is very, very, very unconventional advice on acting. Well, I'm training people very clearly to work with their emotions, activate their emotions, and then jump into their imaginations. Jump into their imaginary circumstances. But instead of having an imaginary circumstance that's just your own belief, you're going to have an interaction in the imaginary circumstance. So whatever it takes for you to detail, just like a writer sits down and details different characteristics of some character that's in a script. They come up with character traits. Can you imagine certain people have certain character traits even though you've never met them? Now, this is an interesting thing because, look, you absolutely have to be healthy in acting. But the reality is absolutely the truth. You don't know. All of a sudden, you go into a situation where you walk into some black box theater or some whatever studio or some sound stage, and you've got some audition that you've got to do, and you've never seen a person before in your life, and you've got to instantly try and connect with them, that they've had this background that's in the script. And maybe they're the script's about these replacement car part companies that will make replacement car parts that are absolutely fake, but they make fake ones and they sell them as real ones, and they'll make oodles of money because they're doing this with the highest end vehicles, and nobody knows the difference between $150,000 part for a car and their part for the car. Now you've got to go in and you've got to believe that you're in a situation that's a simple situation this is simple for a script to be in. And you're meeting somebody for the first time that you've never ever seen before. And you've got to believe that they're one of these car part manufacturers that do die casting is what it's called. And it comes up with these abilities to basically undercut the market and make parts that are only worth $650 at maximum. And they're selling them for $114,000 on Ferrari bumpers. Well, the advice here is simple. You've absolutely have to do something to be able to build that chemistry up. So if you have a script there where you've got some, hawk factory, that's another thing people might call it a hawk factory, high-end hawk factory. I mean, if you're dealing with some kind of crime like that, where you've got the ability of people to do that kind of thing in a script, you want to identify, quantify it. You want to, what are the qualities of a person that would be doing that kind of business? And even if you're a total lamb walking into the situation, but yet you still have a situation where you're going into the circumstance. This is very key. What are you going to do to identify with that person? You don't want to just talk to them like you're a stranger on the coffee shop. You want to be able to identify qualities and traits within a person, regardless of whether or not you know them or not. Then you've got literally 3 to 15 seconds in an audition to look at the person that you're reading with and try and say, yeah, you know what? This person looks like this could be somebody that sells international car parts that are fakes. And this is the reason why. This one, this reason, and this reason. And you need to be able to do that in 15 seconds. Sometimes faster, sometimes you have longer. And then be able to know that and then work off of the script. So you're identifying what it is in another, and you're able to read them that quickly. Now, this isn't joking around. This is real acting. This is the ability to really find. You want to identify inner life of the other person that could match what it is that's on the script. So, it could be the quality that they look like they've done high crime. They could be a quality that emotional quality. I mean, literally. And this is the reason why when I'd be given this kind of audition, in an audition, I will look and go through the traits of, okay, well, I have a main scene with Charlie. And Charlie is this person that's this car hawk guy that's selling $114,000 Ferrari bumpers for $114,000 and they're manufacturing them fake for $550 cost. And that's the scene. I would then start to brainstorm what are the qualities of Charlie. So when I'm in the audition, I can immediately recognize some of those qualities and traits so that we have that thing that casting directors and other people in the cast, if this is a part just between me and him, me and Charlie, then all of a sudden other people in the cast will go, you know what? Those two have chemistry. Well, that's true. If I did this part this way, it would be true that I would have chemistry with the fictitious person named Charlie. It would also help the fact that I don't support that kind of thing at all. And that would probably come in through the part. But the thing about it is, it would be true that I would have chemistry. That's true. But what would be true, and the reason why I have the chemistry, is because I have the acting technique. Now, when's the last time you did an audition and instead of focusing on how you said your lines, you focused on if you could readily available, could you get the character traits of the person that you were working off of, and would you be able to recognize something to work off of them with in the first 15 seconds of scene? This is the difference between big stars in Hollywood and people that don't get roles. And a lot of times, to be frank, sometimes the stars can do some of this work themselves. Sometimes it's the coaches that actually say, hey, look, you need to do such and such. And then they go, oh, okay. And then they'll do it and it will work for them. You know, and that's why people get coached for auditions. But this is, you know, not a standard way to be able to prepare for an audition. This is an unconventional way to prepare for an audition, which I am suggesting completely myself. I'm not getting this from anyone else that I know. I mean, I don't remember anybody saying anything like this in classes. But I mean, there's always creative things that people do. So, I mean, there could be versions of things that people could rehearse that are kind of strange like this, that happened, and that's part of fleshing out the creativity and the life of the audition. You want to be able to identify character traits. I've been with people, doesn't matter who, where we would play a game where we would try to identify character traits with people. And we weren't even doing this intentionally as a game. It was just something that we did because it was interesting. So we go, oh yeah, that's the kind of person that would be this. That's the kind of person that we could see, you know, being in this area or that area. See, these are the elements. These are the realities of how things actually, how to mine those things that will later activate themselves in your acting. And it will be like vomit. Chemistry will just come and it will just be, things will just blurt out. That's just normal. That's exactly, completely impromptu. And this is exactly the way that you want to be able to continue to train yourself to be. You work to do the being side of the work first. You dive into the imaginary circumstance. And part, in this case, of the being side of the work in that example would be to identify those character traits and immediately identify those in the audition. Immediately. And then start working off of those assumptions. Now, you could adjust those assumptions later. You know, maybe Charles is a nice guy and maybe at the same time, you know, for the part, you want to keep those things alive. in your imagination or in your imaginary circumstance that you're building with him. And that's something that's another study to itself, which I'm doing quite a lot of work on. I'm not going to stop working. I don't care what goes on. I'm going to continue to work. And I have gotten this far through a very hard injury. Because I don't take part in certain things in this industry, and I was assaulted. So I don't hurt people. That's my problem, and I just focus on working on talent, and at least I try not to hurt people. I'm sure I've always said it here, there, something or other that would be hurting people's feelings. Some people don't like to hear proper critique of their work, and that's fair. If you don't want to hear it, you don't want to hear it. But the thing about critique is you want to be able to continue to improve yourself. So you improve yourself by literally expanding your talent. You expand your perceptions. You expand your depth. Constantly working to expand your emotions. These are very, very, very key things that are fantastic ways to be able to improve things. Okay, I have a list of questions here. And to be quite frank, we're going to be a little short today, and that's totally, absolutely okay. I want to answer a couple of questions and then wrap it up today. Please absolutely feel free to contact me and make sure that you have questions either now or later, and that is completely all right. Okay, I will cover this simple question. How many times to do the repetition? How many times to do the repetition? There are some teachers that have taught repetition only to be repeated 6 times strategically. And they repeat 6 times strategically, they stop, and then restart. They think that that's the proper way. Well, look, there's benefits to doing repetition. And to be honest, that's an entire lesson, because repetition, the freer you have it, the more it's going to do for you. The more you invest in it, the more it's going to do for you. The more you receive during repetition, the more it's going to do to you. And the looser you're capable of having the structure, the more directions you can go with it. So I have absolutely seen very proper repetition group circles, repetition, it's group repetition, where there's 5 to 8, 10 people around a circle, and they'll do repetition for a half an hour where everyone's making changes based on whether or not there's a new moment. And that's valid. And I would encourage to do that with 3 people, 4 people, 5 people, 10 people. Perfect. But if you limit the amount of times that you do repeating, the point of repetition is to mind and to find the deeper points. So you're keeping the repetition going until there's an internal change inside. Something changes, there's an internal change. It changes in you, there's an internal change. That's a call out. You call out the internal change. The internal change continues to get repeated, and then a new thing happens. That's a new moment. You call that out. Now, the reason why you work like that is that you want to be able to practice the ability to be able to do that in the acting exercises. So you gain the ability to capture those moments, for one, which are sometimes difficult to capture when you're actually working and acting. And you capture those moments and you literally maintain that until there's something that's fresh, something that's new. Hopefully, that there's something even deeper. Now, this is key. So you can ask yourself, if you limit the amount of times that you can repeat to 6 times, and say, if you only do 6 times, it's Sanford Meisner technique. If you do more than 6 times, it's not Sanford Meisner technique. This is what some people teach. Now, look, they're free to teach whatever they want. Of course, I'm not at all trying to hinder anybody. But ask yourself the question, would that help your acting? To limit your ability to repeat something when you're looking to mine the deeper moment. You repeat it. Typically 6 times, there could be a new moment after the sixth time. It's very possible. A lot of times there could be. But that's my answer. My answer is there is no limit to the amount of times to repeat during repetition. And the other thing that's absolutely essential for me to be able to say is that repetition, look, repetition is not all of acting, but repetition's in acting, and repetition can really help acting. So experiment with it. And when you find those elements, something will wake up inside of you. There'll be an internal thing, just wake up. Something will wake up. Happens. That's the new moment. Call the new moment out. If it goes on for 15 minutes, the repetition, what's the problem? It practices your spontaneity. It practices your responsiveness. You're working with your speech. There's all kinds of reasons why. You're working with the proper technique that's capable of mining something that's internal and getting the external thing expressed. How could that hurt your acting? You're going to be expressing too much? No, it's going to absolutely help. So you want to be careful with what limitations you put on anything, but answer that question with that information. And then answer that question yourself. Let me know what the results are. Okay. Okay, let me answer this question. What do you do? What do you do when you don't know which emotion is needed for a scene? What do you do when you don't know which emotion is needed for a scene? It's a good question. The first thing to do is to recognize that you might not know. Like, look, if I'm looking at a script, I'm going to look out and say, I'm going to pick 2 or 3 emotions. 2 or 3 emotions that I think that script or that material actually needs to have. And then I'm going to say, either I'm going to try it out that way in the audition, or when I'm working with a table read, or when I'm working on a new section of a series or a play or whatever material it is for acting. When there's a new section, I'll try out a new emotion with a new scene, working with rehearsal, then I'll try out that thing and then kind of see if that works. Now, if it's a discussion to have beforehand, which sometimes it is, The director sits down trying to figure out. Then at that point, I would say to the director, or I would say to the producer, or I would say to whoever I was using with as a sounding board for my work, I would say, listen, I think that this scene has anger. I think that there's some elements of disappointment, and those are the two main things that I could see coming up in the scene. You get that that's kind of hitting where the writer's intending for this to go, and I might be talking to the writer themselves. And at that point, they can go, yeah, that's about it. Or they can go, well, actually, they wanted to have it be about desperation. Say, okay, well, if they're looking for desperation, then I need to kind of decide whether or not I'm going to be emotionally preparing on what I originally came up with, or do I emotionally prepare on what they're suggesting, which is desolation. Now, this goes without saying. If I'm emotionally preparing for a scene on desolation, I'm going to have to know where to find my own desolation. This is key. If they say an emotion that I don't know where to find in myself to activate it by myself, then I'm going to have to do some work. I'm going to immediately write down what they're saying, whatever they say, so I can consider it and work it out, etc. But if it's desolation, then I'm going to be looking at some things in myself that are going to suck to live through. It's not just anger. It's not just the writer's telling me that their intent is desolation. They want to see desolation. So the anger, I might be right that there's anger in the scene, but at the same time, they're telling me they want something deeper. They want desolation. It sucks. It sucks because it means I'm going to actually have to find something that's going to pinch emotionally a little bit harder. And I'm going to have to do work to be able to find desolation. So I'm going to have to be willing to do that work. Now, what was the question again? It was, what do you do when you don't know what emotion is needed for the scene? Look, it's very fine if you're working at an audition, you haven't talked to anybody, you pick your best selection that you can actually activate. So you have a solution in your acting. You absolutely want to find an emotion that you can activate, because listen, an activated emotion is more valuable to you when you're acting than picking an emotion that you don't really have to work with to add to your work. So let's say you're new at this process and you don't have 150 emotions to pick from because you haven't done that many exercises or done that much emotional preparation work. I was never bothered. Sometimes I would be working and studying in the classes and sometimes not working. And the thing is, I was never bothered by that because I would be constantly, when I say constantly, I mean constantly doing emotional preparations till exhaustion and loving it. I'd go to the classrooms. I'd go to the classroom. I'd choose whichever what I was studying, uh, working to get that working and take notes and take in every single thing. And then I'd go back to my studio and everything. Then I'd work with my emotions between classes. I do emotional preparation after emotional preparation after emotional preparation. I never, ever, ever cared if it was me on stage or not on stage, as long as I was working and expanding my emotional life. There's value to that. Of course, it's valuable to work, but the thing is that it doesn't always, there's emotional availability now in me that I know that I have that's wider than 150 emotions. I can isolate more than 150 emotions, which, by the way, I'm going to be showing you very clearly. So, not to be beneficial only to me, it's going to be a benefit for me to work and to work through that stuff and show you guys that. But here's the reason. I want absolutely for you to know and learn how to access emotion yourself by seeing me work through the emotion. So picking an emotion that you can activate is the key. If all you have that you're able to at this point to emotionally prepare on is anger, then put anger into the script. Intertwine the activated anger of and the material of the script into your acting. That's all you need to do. And whether you'll be more likely to get the part because you're putting something that's actually real and really activated in you. So there's a real-time sequence of events that actually happens because when you jump into the circumstances, then all of a sudden there's something that's activated in you and it's starting to unfold. So you have a real-time experience, which is what acting's all about. There's these entire elements having to do with acting, and I see so many different people, and I'm thankful to all of the thousands and thousands of people, both professional and non, that I have seen doing acting techniques in classes. Because what I've learned from them, I'm trying right now to be able to express all that I've actually learned. And I'm just touching it, just beginning to touch the beginning of how much I've actually learned. And I'm going to continue to express it. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for watching all of those. 20,000 failed attempts at acting. Sometimes a lot more. When I say, sometimes there's 3 people in the exercises. Sometimes there's only 2. So I'm watching 2 different emotional preparations in one exercise, making notes on those. Did they get their emotional preparation? Did this come through? Is it interactive? These are the kinds of things. I didn't even want to blink when I'm studying. And when I'm teaching classes, oh man, I need 2 coffees to teach class because I'm that into it. I'm absolutely determined and watching every moment on both sides. It's vital. Vital. So when I say this comment that I'm about to say about acting, I really appreciate all the very brave people that continue to work, even when they became known names, or they, whatever, I won't say, but I'll just say I'm really appreciative. But here's the thing about it. A lot of people train themselves to be able to have an emotion happen to them within a certain area, right? So they have an emotional section, and there's changes that happen throughout the scene, right? I get that. There's some healthy advice to this, right? Where the scene starts, the emotion flows, that's part of the whole thing with the scenes, and eventually it comes into this fluid orchestra type production, hopefully, and there's these elements. But sometimes what people will do with their own emotional preparations is they'll try to reactivate their own emotional preparations in their acting. It gives me a headache. You emotionally prepare in the being side of the work. You got the being side of the acting work, and then you've got the doing side of the acting work, which is the interaction. It's absolutely great if you can emotionally prepare at halftime or in between scenes. If that's how you're going to do your approach, perfect. When sometimes the more advanced people get going with emotional preparations, they want to do emotional preparations in front of an audience. Well, I'm doing emotional preparations in front of you because I'm doing this to show and illustrate exactly how to be able to access my emotions, to be able to put it into the scripts. That's it. That's all it is. That's all she wrote. That's it. That's done. That's the deal. It has nothing other than to do is to reveal the techniques of acting. When you try to take moments away from being fully interactive during your acting experience on stage to do emotional preparation, thinking that no one's seeing it, you start messing up your work. You start cheating yourself from your own experience. So that's something that's just peculiar to me. A lot of people, sometimes people that do this work and do it well, I mean, they're talented. You know, I would say something to them. Sometimes I have before. It just depends on the circumstance. You want to be completely, you don't know what the experience of doing is going to actually do for you. So during that time of interaction, the only thing you're there to do is interact. You don't want to have performance. Of course, there's things that you do, there's setups that you have, and there's things to work with. Of course, there's elements like that, but you want to do those as little as possible and just literally live a new experience every single time. So look, this is going to wrap up. I know it's only 2 questions today, but that's okay. So thank you for joining the feed and watching this and participating, and all the stuff on the website, emotional preparation. Thank you for the comments, compliments, and just genuine comments. You know, I really absolutely think it's cool. I think it's good. And there's a lot I could say, but I just say that stay diligent in your work. I'm going to continue to get this thing working and set up, and anything you can do to help, that's great. And any suggestions you have, that's great. And the point of it is to be able to get the workout. I don't know if 5 years from now, these videos will stay out there and all of a sudden I'll start teaching a bunch of Nigerians how to do acting. I don't care. I'd be fine with that. Because the thing is that typically the high level of training that I'm actually communicating to you for free has taken me a lot of work to be able to obtain. So I want to make sure that it's very open and people have access to it. I really am into acting, and I know you are too. And the most important thing in acting is emotion. You've got to be willing and capable, and you got to know some of these tricks. These tricks of being able to activate your emotion. You activate your emotion in the being side of the work, and then you catapult yourself and dive into the doing side of the work, the interaction. And this element called emotional preparation is key. Hi, my acting training is incredibly extensive. These are some of my notes. This is not all of them. By far, it's not all. And I really like acting. I really like the hardest component of acting is the emotion. And so that's why I run and operate emotional preparation. And there's information on that website that you can join me on my live feed, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Tuesdays and Fridays. I hope to see you there. If you find the information on my website, you can actually join the live feed. I can send you a link and you can actually come on and talk to me face to face. And you can actually, we'll do emotional preparations together. So we can actually work to be able to access your emotions and help you be able to put emotions into